Welcome to What's the Score, a series solely dedicated to the support of Central Florida's small business and entrepreneurs. Donated as a community service by AM 660 The Answer and Salem Communications. Now, here's Christopher Hart and Rich Jekyll.
Welcome to the show, and good morning, everyone. And contrary to that little blurb right before the show, this show is not pre-recorded. It is live. That's right, folks. We are live right here on AM 660, The Answer this morning. What's the Score is the name of the show, and that's right. I am Christopher Hart. I want to welcome you to the show this morning. And being a live call-in show, that means you can call us, of course. And that number for you to call is 407-774-8255. If you have a question about Score, if you have a question about our topic of discussion today, or if you just want to call us and tell us what you think about the show. And we're open to all kinds of compliments and or criticism. So please give us a call this morning at 407-774-8255. This show is like none other, folks, because it is dedicated to entrepreneurialism. And you folks out there who want to get started in a business, or you folks out there who are already running a business, this show is for you because Score is for you. So good morning this morning, Rich Jekyll.
Good morning, Mr. Harton. How are you this morning?
Excellent. And yourself?
I'm just fine. Although I'm getting pretty tired of you putting me on the spot every week with all these answers and everything that I got to provide.
Radio.
So I am going to ask you a question, my friend.
Okay.
What is the best way to go? To start your own business or to buy an existing business?
Well, now you could have me answer that question, or you could have somebody who knows what they're talking about answer that question. And of course, I'm talking about Paul McNally, who's back with us again this morning. Good morning, Paul.
Yeah.
Good morning, Chris. How you doing? It's good to be back this Saturday morning.
All right. And the reason I say that is because Paul is a business broker. That is his business now. He's been a restaurateur. He knows a great deal about restaurants and restaurant business, which is what we talked about on our show last week. And we'll tell you, by the way, where you can listen to that show if you missed it, because we do now have it in archives. And But being a business broker, he deals with people who are trying to buy and or sell businesses. And being a businessman himself, he knows what it's all about to start up your own business.
So he knows more than you do.
That's what I'm leading up to.
Okay, very good. I got it.
Thank you for stating that, what should now be the obvious. But first, in the first part of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about Score, because I know this is a brand new show. This is our 4th edition, and Score is a great organization there for everybody who wants to be in business or who is already in business. We'll talk about a little bit about that and what they're up to this week, for instance. And in the second part of the show, which is our Keys to Success feature, we're going to talk today about poor budgeting and expense management, which in essence, we're going to be talking about what is a business plan and why is it smart to have a business plan, right, Rich?
Exactly. Business plan can be anywhere from 2 pages to 10 pages. It does not have to be a phone book.
And we'll talk all about that and what exactly is a business plan and why you should have one. And in the second part of the show, the second half of the show, I should say, we're going to talk about buy or start your own. Buy your business or start your own. There's positives and negatives to each.
Right.
That's why we have Paul McNally in the show today to talk exactly about that.
To talk about positives and negatives, guess who just crawled under the door?
It's our very own Nostradamus. That's right, folks.
Was that a compliment or was that an insult? I'm not sure which of those.
You better think about that one for a little bit.
Well, I tell you, we're already creating a little buzz with this show to drag Nostradamus out of the sack here on Saturday morning to come down.
It was the Lincoln episode of What's the Score? You know, it's 4 score. Show number 4. I figured
On second thought, maybe you better leave.
I'll sit in the corner.
All right, really quickly, once again, briefly, Rich, what is Score?
SCORE is a voluntary organization, a nonprofit organization. It's actually national. We had our 50th anniversary last month, at which you attended, and we had a big to-do out there at the National Entrepreneur Center. And SCORE consists of volunteers, as I said, mostly retired business people and executives and business owners. Although we've had to change, the acronym SCORE used to mean Service Corps of Retired Executives, because that's what it was. But nowadays, since we have so many business people that are still active and working, we had to kind of reduce that acronym to Service Corps for Orlando or Nation Small Business Community.
There you go. That works. And the best part about SCORE is there is no charge to you.
Absolutely no charge for counseling.
And you have a great opportunity here in Central Florida that many other parts of the country don't have, because you have a place where you can actually walk in, and the Entrepreneurial Center over at the Fashion Square, very convenient, open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
That's right. It's one of only 3 in the country that houses service providers such as Hispanic Business Initiative Fund and the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, African American Chamber of Commerce, Small Business Development Center. All these community services are housed under the umbrella of the National Entrepreneur Center. And, of course, the CEO of the National Entrepreneur Center is our friend Jerry Ross.
And that phone number over there is 407-420-4844, 407-420-4844. Or you can just walk in. It's right there in the Fashion Square. And the office hours, once again, are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Right. Call, Mom.
There you go. There you go. And if you'd like to go online to find out more about SCORE and sign up to get emails and alerts from them, go to orlando.score.org. That's orlando.score.org. And, Rich, can they email you there?
Yes, absolutely. What is the email address, Paul? You have it right there?
All right, well, we'll dig that out in case
we'll dig it out.
You want to email over for some information or some comments about our show here. And once again, this is being provided as a public service by AM 660 The Answer and Salem Communications, and we certainly appreciate that. And real quickly, Rich, what, for instance, is going on over at the Entrepreneur Center this week? Because you're holding seminars all the time.
All the time. We have a series of about 20 seminars that are held every month, and it's a variety of different things, such as funding your business, building your business plan, building your financial plan, and your social media. How do I use social media in my marketing? Human resources, human relations issues. All these things are available if you go to our website and check it out and check out the schedule. You can get directions on how to get to SCORE and what the seminars are and what they entail.
Do you have to make a reservation to attend these seminars?
It's a good idea to go ahead online and register for the seminars before.
Okay, and the seminars, are they held in the evening, during the day, both?
Both.
Okay, so
Saturdays.
Okay, so it's convenient. So pretty much anybody should be able to find a time where they can attend these seminars.
That's right.
They can work it into their schedule because you repeat the seminars during the day and remote.
Right.
And it's a great idea, folks, especially if you're brand new to the business world, because there's no substitute for experience, for one. And to have that experience available to you at no charge is a huge plus for the new business person, but it's also a plus for the business person who's already out there running a business, because a lot of times you're running your business and you aren't doing some of the things that you could be doing or should be doing to make your business bigger and better. That's where SCORE can help you. This is not just for somebody who's never been in business. This is for any businessman or woman.
The question is your business running you, or are you running your business?
And that's something the SCORE can help you out.
Right.
And like I said, folks, you need to take advantage of this if you're in any way an entrepreneur. 407-420-4844 is the number at SCORE Orlando, or orlando.score.org. And as I said, SCORE is there for you. Now, when people come into SCORE, what is the first thing that they should expect to happen when they come in the door?
Well, they are interviewed, as to what are you looking for? Where do you hurt? Where's the pain? And they will tell us, I'd like to find out more about a business. Well, the first thing we're going to recommend is there are 2 seminars coming up. Attend those 2 seminars and do your homework before you come in and see a counselor. Counselor can't help you brainstorm as to what's my best choice for a business to start. I mean, Paul's there to do that, right, Paul?
That's right.
And that's what we're going to be talking about throughout the show today. We're getting ready to go to the first break. Once again, folks, this is a live show here Saturday morning. 407-774-8255 is the number. It's a beautiful July 19th here in Central Florida. And thank you again for joining us. Once again, folks, you can be a part of SCORE. All you have to do is go to orlando.score.org. And when we come back, we'll be talking about budgeting, expense management, and what it means exactly to have a business plan. But before we go to the break, I just want to remind you folks that radio may be what can take you to the next level in your business. You can have a radio show like this of your own, and guess what? You can team with other people in your industry to have that type show. Each one of you can contribute, and each of you can be a part of that show. And it's done, and it's not unusual in the industry for that to happen. Radio is a great outlet for you to get recognition in the community, and you can do it either by advertising on the radio station or by having your own radio show. If you would like to find out more about either one of those, call Paul Proley at AM 660 The Answer. His number is 407-618-1769. Paul Proley at 407-618-1769. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation about what's the score. All right, welcome back to What's the Score, folks. You are listening to a live show this morning. I am Christopher Hart of the American Adversaries Radio Show. Just happen to have my executive producer, Nostradamus, in the studio with us this morning.
Hi, guys.
He's like me. He just can't stay away from an open mic. And we also have, of course, as the co-host of What's the Score, Rich Jekyll in the studio. You know, you got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hart.
There you go. Hey, Chris, did I tell you that it was my daughter's birthday this last week?
Indeed, you did not.
Okay, she lives in Tucson, and
I hope she's listening.
No, she would not. But, now that I'm a big radio personality down here in Orlando, I sent her the gift from the heart, which was my autograph on some Kleenex tissue, because I figured she could at least use the tissue.
Okay. Well, happy birthday to your daughter. What's her name?
Tammy.
Happy birthday to Tammy. First girl I had a crush on was named Tammy. It wasn't the same one, was it?
I doubt it. She's about 50 years younger than you.
And I was in first grade. All right. Paul McNally, welcome once again to the show this morning. This part of the show is our feature segment every morning, Keys to Success. And there are many keys to success, as there are trips to failure. But one of the keys to success is having budgeting and expense management skills. And one of the quickest ways to failure is having poor budgeting skills. Is that not the case, Paul?
That absolutely is. Top line is important with the sales, but if you're not managing what's going out, then you're not going to have any profit at the end.
All right. Well, what do you mean by budgeting skills?
Well, budgeting skills are being able to project what those expenses are going to be going forward before they happen, and then trying to manage the business so that those expenses do happen at the right time.
Are you talking about large and small expenses?
Well, you've got two types. You've got fixed expenses that you really have no control over, which would be your electric bill, your rent, and items that you really can't do anything about. But there are other expenses, whether it be product costs and what you're charging for product, your labor costs, where you do have control and can try to manage to a number. So you have to be constantly trying to balance your sales along with your expenses so that at the end of the day, you've got a profit to be able to show.
What are your variable costs there, Paul?
Well, your variable costs are depending on the business, that's going to change. But usually they will fall into the products that you're selling. In the case we were talking last week about restaurants, it would be your food cost to try to make sure that the percentage of your sales is at that right percent. If you've got a lot of waste of foods and you're running a higher food cost, then that's going into your profits and sometimes can eat them all up. If you're running a shoe store, it's that you're buying you're buying those shoes to sell at the right price, and that you're marking them up to make enough profit to be able to cover your fixed expenses and your other expenses.
What about your inventory, old inventory?
Inventory control is an important thing, that you don't have too much of it, that you don't have too little of it. You have to have enough that you have the products to sell to people, but if you have too much, sometimes stuff can get outdated. Styles change in the case of that shoe store, and you'll have stuff that'll be sitting on the shelf forever and tying your money up on things that are not moving. So usually you'll want that inventory rolling on a regular basis.
Yeah, I believe in that. That's why I never have a beer at my house, because they're always out of it.
You never have any inventory problem there, right?
None. It's turned over very quickly.
All right. Once again, folks, we are live. If you would like to call in, if you have any questions for Paul or Rich, please do call us at 407-774-8255. Of course, we'd also love to hear what you think about the show as well. Paul, basically what you're talking about is, in essence, is developing a business plan, are you not?
Yes, we are. We're talking about sitting down, taking what you've got in your head and getting it down on paper. A lot of people go into starting a business with a great idea, and they've got everything up in their head. And one of the things at SCORE that we try to do is take it from their head and put it on paper so that they can start planning it out and seeing if it makes sense. So it's just developing a strategy on projecting what your sales are going to be, what your expenses are going to be, to make sure that their idea that they have really makes sense financially.
You know, guys, that this is important, because when you come to SCORE and you've got even a 2-page business plan, we've got to see if you're going to be able to support yourself and your family on this business adventure. That's what our total focus is going to be. Can you make money? Can you do enough business to support yourself? You know, the rest is your thoughts, but our focus would be on the money-making aspect.
Master Dennis has a question.
Yeah, Paul, my wife
Hold on.
loves...
There we go. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, Jim. My wife loves those TV shows where the expert goes into the restaurant or the hotel, looks around, checks out what's going on, and gives them hints and tips on how to make their business better. And it seems so many of these people that run a restaurant or a hotel love the idea of purchasing the property, but have no clue at all how to run it. How prevalent is that? How many people who own a business have no idea, absolutely no idea how to run it?
That happens real often in all kinds of businesses. People think that because they stayed at a hotel, they know how to run a hotel. And it's a whole different animal, and experience is so important to be successful, because a lot of those hidden costs that people don't see are there, and it's only with the experienced person, or if you hire some experienced people to help you or consult with, can help uncover those when you're putting your business plan together.
And do you ever have an owner who comes to you and asks for some help, and you look at the situation and say, you know, you really have no business running this, I'd recommend you sell it?
Well, and we often do that. It could be either a sale or to try to prevent them from going into business. And at SCORE, that's sometimes our job is to, be that extra set of eyes to tell them that maybe they need to rethink their idea.
Right. We usually try to prove that, the way you're thinking here, you can't make money at this. You can't support yourself. You can't support your family. So you need to rethink this idea and tweak it or change it or go get a job.
And so you're trying to be realistic with people. You're not there trying to get anything out of them, obviously, because they come to you at no charge, so there's no monetary incentive for you to play them along. So you're going to be realistic with people and say, look, you're just not ready yet if they're not ready. Yeah. Will you tell them what to go and do to prepare themselves and come back?
Absolutely, and our job is to prevent as many failures as we can. So many small businesses fail in today's marketplace that we want to try to prevent some of that. And if it means talking somebody out of going to business to prevent them from failing, then that's what we have to do.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people get into business, and I must admit I'm guilty of this to a certain extent, that I didn't have a business plan when I got into my carpentry business, because people would come to me with projects. I didn't feel like I needed a business plan per se. And so basically a lot of people just say, well, I just go out and get my tools, or I go out and I make this, and then I go out and sell it. Why do I need a business plan? if for somebody, say, like me, who's already in business without a business plan, can a business plan still help me out?
Absolutely. You are more of a reactive type business. You react to your leads that come to you. Most businesses have to be proactive. They have to go out and generate their leads and generate their business and sell their product or service. You were lucky. I mean, if people come to you, then you were very lucky. But you could have probably been up quicker and had a much larger client base if you would have thought about being more proactive in your business.
And I tell you, I have to be careful because in the radio business, I have to be proactive. Yep. Because the people don't come to me like they do in the carpentry business.
Right.
And you get into bad habits. And I've found that I've had some bad habits that I had to break. Otherwise, the show was not going to go on. And it's much more of a struggle to be proactive. I will admit that for sure. It's obvious. But you have to do that to succeed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look at some of the guests we've had on here. John Cheek from Orlando Brewing,
yep.
The founder of Orlando Brewing. We've got the founder of the Predators and Mike McBath. And now we got Paul McNally here. Well, you know, we've had 1 out of 3 that wasn't so good, but the other 2...
Mike's going to be mad you said that.
I know, I didn't mean Mike. Oh, Paul, sorry.
But business planning is so crucial because if you don't have a plan, you're not going to know if you're on schedule, kind of too, Paul.
And there's a lot of truth to that. And even taking your example, sometimes you can get started by having people come to you, but at a point, if you want to grow that business and start getting other crews and make that business more profitable than it's been, that's sometimes where a business plan is more important to get in there to help with your growth.
And once again, folks, this just exemplifies the fact that SCORE is there whether you're brand new to business or whether you're already in business. All of these principles still apply.
You know, they say if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
That's what the Army Ranger motto, and I believe the Navy SEALs as well.
Yep.
And they say that for a reason, and because there's truth in those words.
Well, the other thing is they say that a business plan is proof that it wasn't an accident.
Well, there you go. There you go. Now, a lot of people might think out there, well, if I just go out and buy a business, I don't need a business plan. Well, we're going to talk about that after this break because we're coming up on the break. Once again, we are live here this morning. The name of the show is What's the Score? It's brand new. It is unique. You will not hear another one like it in Central Florida, I dare say probably anywhere. And once again, you can be a part of the show too, 407-774-8255. When we come back, we're going to talk about should you buy an existing business or start one of your own.
Give us a call, kids.
All right, welcome back to What's the Score on this fine Saturday morning here in Central Florida, folks. We are live. If you would like to be a part of the show, 407-774-8255. In particular, if you have questions about whether you should buy or start your own business. And I am Christopher Hart, joined in the studio today by Rich Jekyll of SCORE Orlando.
Hey, Chris, how do you like these new commercials we got going here?
I know they're running the beer commercials in the right show.
Oh, yeah, man, I love it. I endorse that. Of course, I spend the most money on that. What's that, Nostradamus?
Wait a minute, we got to get his mic up. Well, hold on just a second. Real quickly, we also have Paul McNally of SCORE in the studio with us this morning. Paul, how you doing?
Good, Chris. How are you?
All right, and we got Nostradamus, my executive producer from my radio show, The American Adversaries, is also in the studio with us this morning.
Commercials are making me
hold on, we got to get your mic up here. Use this microphone real quickly.
These commercials are making me thirsty.
I'm with you.
I think that's the intent of the thing. All right, welcome back to the show. All right, this morning we're going to talk about whether you should buy an existing business, if you're new to business, whether you should buy a business or whether you should start your own business.
Hey, Chris, I got a suggestion.
Okay.
Let's ask the audience at large for somebody to call and give us an opinion as to what they should do. What do they think would be a good idea to do?
Or tell us what your experience was if you bought or started your own business. And
so what's the phone number?
Why you did so. So if you'd like to do that, 407-774-8255 is the number. We'd love to hear from you in the audience today. We are a live show. In the meantime, Paul, you're a business broker. So people come to you to either buy or sell a business, do they not?
That's correct. And I deal with a lot of startups through my volunteering at SCORE.
And so you know but the best and the worst of both worlds,
Absolutely.
so to speak. First of all, you started your own business, did you not?
Correct. I started a restaurant many years ago, and I've bought some existing restaurants along the way, too. So I've done it both ways.
So once again, you know the best and the worst of both worlds. Which did you prefer?
Well, I'm a believer on buying an existing business for a lot of reasons. It goes back to an old physics phrase that we learned back in high school: objects in motion stay in motion, objects that rest continue to rest. And if you're buying an existing business, you're buying history, you've got things rolling along, and it's easier to step in there and continue to run it. If you're doing a startup, then it takes more energy to get that business into motion.
Now, obviously, some businesses you probably can't buy. Say, for instance, you have a unique product or something like that. But can you still buy a business for its marketing potential?
Absolutely. If you've got a new product that you want to go to market, and you can buy a business that way you can integrate that product into the business, at least you've got the core set there. And in the case of a new product, you may have the sales force already in place, the customer service side of it already in place. So you've got a lot of the basics that you would need. Whereas if you're starting it up, you've got to put all those people and departments into place.
Rich, do people come into SCORE looking sometimes to buy a business?
Absolutely. One of my biggest things, and I'll ask Paul this too, is that you buy a business, and what happens if it's got a bad rep? And it's going downhill, and you're instead of buying goodwill, which is your customer base, you're buying badwill.
Well, and that does happen, and you've got to look at a business, and what we recommend, and part of the process on buying the business is going through a due diligence period, where you'll really dive into that business, into their books, to confirm that the history that they've told you that the business is doing, that it is in fact business that they did do,
viable business, yeah.
Exactly, and to look at that goodwill, look at what the culture is of the employees, and to decide whether that's going to be good for you moving forward. If you're doing a startup, as opposed to that, you develop that culture, you develop that goodwill. So sometimes having that control, a lot of people would rather do that than take on somebody else's baggage.
Okay, but that takes time for a startup to develop the goodwill and the client base and the culture, et cetera. And when you're buying a business, that time is reduced tremendously.
It is reduced. You're going to be paying probably a little bit of a premium because you've got all of that in place. And in the startup, that time is going to revert to money. I mean, it costs you money when it costs you time, because when you're building up that business, there's a cost to that.
Paul, is it fair to equate buying a used business to buying a used car, in that if you're buying it and they're selling it, there's a reason they're getting rid of it? Or does that happen a lot?
Absolutely. It's one of the very common questions a buyer will have is, why are they selling the business? And there's a lot of different reasons that they're selling the business. It could be they've had enough and they're retiring. Their children aren't interested in carrying on the business. So there are a lot of real legitimate reasons to sell a business. Looking at the trends of the sales, in some cases maybe they're getting out because they're seeing negative trends because they can't run the business properly, or times are changing, things are changing, and they're not. So those are the things you've got to look at, and the price of what you're paying for that existing business definitely is reflected by those trends.
So how do you sort out the legitimate reasons from the excuses for someone who's looking to buy a business?
Well, during that due diligence period, you need to do your research and figure out whether what they're telling you is actually the truth of what's happening. And that due diligence takes bringing some experts in sometimes an attorney, an accountant, or a business consultant. And depending on the size of the purchase, if it's a small Main Street mom and pop, as we call them, type business, it might not be as big a due diligence as if you're buying a multi-million-dollar manufacturing business that's been around for a long time.
Now, where does a business broker like yourself fit in?
Well, what we do is we have sellers that come to us that have businesses that they want to sell, and we will list those just as a real estate person would list a house. We have in Florida, the Business Brokers of Florida, a multiple listing system that we put these on. So we've got about 1,000 brokers in the state of Florida that can see that listing, see that business, and a lot of our deals that we put together are co-brokered between two business brokers. And when a buyer comes to us to purchase a business, we try to match them up with the proper business.
So you profile the buyer and the business, basically, huh?
That's correct.
Okay. What happens if I want to buy your business and it's a service business and all your customers are pretty much loyal to you?
Well, one of the things in purchasing a business is the transition, and that's always an important part in the purchase of a business. And a lot of times the seller will stay on for a week or 2 weeks to help with that transition, so you learn the ways that he's running that business, and it's basically your training period. On service businesses, and especially professional businesses, whether it be like a doctor or an attorney business, which those businesses also are bought and sold, the transition period is a lot longer. I was talking with a broker friend of mine recently that had sold a dentist office, and the transition period was 6 months for the old dentist to convert those patients over to the new dentist so that the retention rate would be high.
Okay. What should I shoot for in terms of the percentage of clients that are going to continue on with me once you leave?
That percentage, it depends on the business. In the case of a professional business, a doctor, an attorney, the customers of them are buying the services more of that person individual than if we go back to the shoe store, they're looking for the products itself. So every business really has a different retention percentage.
So I'm a new business buyer here. I've got to go earn their trust, which takes time, and earn their business. They're not necessarily going to give it to me just because I own it.
Absolutely. You've got to continue on. If the person that you bought the business from was doing a good job, you've got to go back and prove that you can continue to do that good job and maybe even do a better job to keep those customers coming back.
What you have to do is you have to put yourself in the customer's perspective. What did that customer get? Why did they come to that business? I need to keep doing that, and I need to maybe even do it better. And that's the attitude I think you need to take. We just have a couple of minutes left in this segment, and folks, we'd love to hear from you. If you're a business owner, or you're thinking about buying a business or thinking about starting a business, give us a call, 407-774-8255. And we can take this into the next segment if we have to, but how do you evaluate a business? How do you decide what it should cost, what you should sell it for?
Well, again, the different industries carry different ways for valuations, but the simple way that a business is valued is mostly by profitability. And every business sells at different multiples, so we dive into the numbers, dive into the financials, look at years of tax returns and P&L statements, profit and loss statements, look at the inventory that they're carrying, look at what kind of investment they have in equipment, and we compare that to other comparable sales. We have databases that we dive into to look at what other businesses similar to that have sold for in the past.
Okay. All right. We're coming up on a break, and I have another question or two about valuations of business. And, folks, if you have a question, now's the time to call 407-774-8255. You are listening to What's the Score? We are live here on AM 660 The Answer. This show is being provided as a community service by AM 660 The Answer and Salem Communications, and we so very much appreciate that. And SCORE is there for you, and there's no charge for this. And if you're thinking of buying a business, thinking of starting a business, or already in business, SCORE is still there for you. And at no charge, it's the best deal in town, Rich.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you get what you pay for. No, not
But
really.
at SCORE, you're going to get a lot of experience, and you can't evaluate experience because it is priceless.
That's correct.
All right,
It's
so
the
we'll-
only organization that actually has experienced business people.
Okay, welcome back to What's the Score, ladies and gentlemen. And no, this is not a sports show. This is a business show. It's all about helping you come up with that winning combination for your business or your business idea. And I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there listening because that is, in essence, the American spirit, is to do it our own way. You know, like the old Frank Sinatra song, you know, you New York guys.
I did
you
it
know,
my
there
way.
you go. That's the one.
Right, baby.
All right, that's Rich Jekyll.
Pass that Budweiser
There
over
you
there,
go.
please.
That's right. I'm telling you, they are running that commercial hard, aren't they? All right, we're live this morning. We'd love to hear from you. 407-774-8255 is the number. Rich Jekyll in the studio, Paul McNally. They're both from the SCORE. Paul is also a business broker. I am Christopher Hart, and along with me is Nostradamus, and we're from the American Adversaries radio show. Now, we're here to talk about whether you should buy an existing business or start your own. We were talking about how to evaluate a business before the break. Obviously, when a business seller comes to you, he probably has a pretty inflated idea of what his business is worth. Do you kind of bring people back down to earth more often than not?
Absolutely. In a lot of cases, they have found that what they think it's worth, it really isn't worth that. And that is, it's a reality check. Some cases they may decide not to sell because of that. Every once in a while, they'll get a surprise and find out it's actually worth more than what they expected. But it is a reality check for most people.
And certainly, if you're out there looking to buy a business, given that, it's very hazardous to deal perhaps directly with a business owner. Perhaps it's a good idea to deal with a broker.
Yeah, sometimes having an intermediary in between is advantageous for both sides.
For both sides of the equation. Rich, when people come to you looking to buy a business, do you refer them to Paul? How do you work with that?
If we can help them in the office easily, then we will take a look at it ourselves. If it's a complicated, large project, then we would refer it to Paul.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Or somebody like Paul. But, you know, one of the things that I look for in a business is liability issues. Paul, tell me, you know, when I buy a business, do I buy the liabilities?
Well, in most cases, when you compare the two, when you're starting up a business, you're starting really with no liabilities because everything, you're on even ground there. When you're buying an existing business, you've got limited liability, but typically you're not purchasing the legal entity that business is owned by. In other words, if the company is owned by an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp, in most transactions, you're purchasing the assets of that corporation and not the corporation. And most of the liabilities are going to come with the corporation itself as far as liens and encumbrances would be against the corporation and not the assets. Now, there are some statutory liens that could go with the assets, which would be unpaid sales tax or things like that.
Right.
But prior to the closing, that's why we use attorneys to close the businesses, and they'll do all of the lien searches and look for those things to try to prevent that liability.
Another good reason why you might want to use a broker rather than going on your own.
Well, you were talking about valuing your business. And I know when people get ready to sell a house, there are all kinds of hints and tips, and some of them are just like putting bread in the oven to give the new homeowner, prospective homeowner, a nice feel of hominess. Are there concrete things that a business owner can do before they sell their business to increase its value?
Absolutely, and a lot of times it takes years to implement some of those exit strategies. And we have people that come to us sometimes to sell a business, and they don't have the business ready to sell it. The books aren't in the proper order. Things aren't there for us to be able to get the maximum value of that business. So in a lot of times, we'll put together an exit strategy that might take 3, 6, 9 months, sometimes multiple years, before that business really has that curb appeal, as they talk about in the real estate business, for the buyers. So that exit strategies definitely are part of what we do. And a lot of times we'll have people come to sell a business and find out it's not ready for sale.
What kind of things help you get your house in order?
Main things are the financials, that their books are in proper order. A lot of small businesses are not keeping the proper records that they need. And what will happen when they go to sell the business, the buyers, that's an important part, because that's what they're buying, that goodwill, and it's proven by the records and not by things just hand-scratched on a piece of paper saying, yeah, this is the sales I did. They want to see the proper filings of their tax returns, their sales tax returns, the proper tax returns that they filed, to be able to justify what they're paying for the business.
Yeah, a lot of people go into business thinking, I'll start a business and I'll, build it up and then I'll sell it for $1 million or something like that. It's much more complicated than that simplistic view, is it not?
There's definitely, it's complicated, but surprisingly, there are a lot of entrepreneurs that turn businesses over on a regular basis. They say that most businesses in general turn over every 5 to 6 years. And I have many times a seller will come to sell a business because he's burned out on it. He's owned it 5-6 years, and he'll sell that, and then he turns around and looks to buy a different business, maybe in another business or maybe the same industry.
Paul, when you buy a business, essentially you're buying the customer base for one. You're buying the business culture, two. And you're buying its asset, obviously. So everything, when you're buying a business, has to be squeaky clean, right?
Typically, we like to have it as squeaky clean as we can, but that's not always the case.
Okay, when you're starting your business, you develop your own culture, you develop your client base, you develop how you hire people, etc., which takes a lot of time.
And time is money, so but that is what a lot of people prefer. There are a group of people that prefer that way because they can define the culture that their employees are going to have. They can design the processes that they need to run the business. They can train the way that they want. Buying an existing business, some people would rather not do the training. They'd rather have people trained. Maybe they're set in their ways at that point, and they're not trained the way you want. You got a defined and established culture. The processes are in place, but some people would rather have that than start from scratch.
I'm glad you went there, because I think we're talking about different. You kind of need to know your own personality, right, in a lot of ways, because I'm the second kind of guy. I'm the kind of guy who likes to start from scratch. I like to develop my own culture. I like to develop my own way of doing things. I like to develop my own systems, so to speak. And to me, it's almost as much work, if I'm going to want it my way, to buy something existing, to have to change it into my vision. So you need to know who you are to know kind of whether you should start or buy. That will be a big step to start with.
Absolutely, and that's a very important point, because if you think you're going to buy an existing business and then change it overnight to your way, you may have overpaid, because you would have been better off starting it from scratch, because you're throwing everything out the window that you really paid for. You may want to run it existing for a while and turn that ship slowly. It's like turning a big cruise boat. You don't want to turn it real quick. It's a small turns.
You could spill it, spill the whole thing.
Yeah, how can you change a Volkswagen into a Cadillac?
It takes time.
Okay. But it takes an organization like SCORE to make sure that you get from point A to point B. And SCORE is a great organization. And once again, folks, you can be a part of SCORE. You can get updates and emails from them by going to orlando.score.org. You can call them or walk into the Entrepreneurial Center over at the Fashion Square. And it's right in between Sears and Penny's there, right behind the parking garage at 407-420-4844. That's 407-420-4844. And remember, radio may be a great way for you to get your organization, whether it's brand new, whether you just bought it and you want to rebrand it, or you're starting one and you want to get your name out into the community. Radio may be the way for you. You can do that either by buying radio advertising or having your own radio show like this. And it's amazingly affordable. At 407-618-1769, you will find Paul Proley of AM 660 The Answer, who can help you out with either of those. 407-618-1769.
Okay, Chris, I also wanted to mention that besides small business assistance, SCORE is always looking for experienced business volunteers, people who want to give back to the community.
You mean people like Paul?
No, but,
Easy now.
Now, yes, people exactly like Paul. Experienced people who want to help small businesses, struggling small businesses, or help startup businesses. So give us a call, please. We're always looking for volunteers. And Nostradamus said something.
Yeah, a quick one just before we wrap up. Are you noticing, Paul, in this, I'll be kind, this sluggish economy, are people more likely to buy a brand new business or to buy a previously owned business than they would if the economy were booming?
Well, people buy and sell businesses in any economy, but the reasons that they're selling are for different reasons. What we're finding now is that it's not really a buyer's market. It's buyers and sellers are coming together with narrower spreads because people are anticipating that the economy will get better over the next few years.
Where do they get the money? There's no loans available out there for the small business owners.
Loans are hard, but in a lot of cases we have seller financing where a seller will help with the financing, and there's a lot of different ways that they can go.
But I love your previous point about people are looking for things to get better. They know once we get perhaps a new president and a new economic policy, we could have a whole lot better economy.
No politics in this show, Chris.
Which would be a whole lot better for all businesses. And because, we can't avoid the realities of life, people are. But it tells me that people in America are still optimistic about the future.
They are, and we're definitely seeing that in the buyers for businesses.
And I'm optimistic about the future because next Saturday we will be back again with another episode of SCORE Live.
Yeah, did you guys notice I'm only wearing one sock? That was to remind me to tell you who is our guest next show.
Who is our guest next show?
We didn't pick them yet.
Well, we'll have one, that's for sure.